All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to RS's All Things Cool About 3D Printing. So today's meeting's purpose is to show you guys a few of the things I've 3D printed. I'm gonna be talking about uh, a lot of the misconceptions about 3D printing. I'll also be sharing some tips on what 3D printers I would recommend, what type of equipment you'll really need to get started. Pretty much the purpose of this STEMinar is to just clear the air out as far as your knowledge goes about 3D printing. If you have any type of ideas of what you want to do, what you can do, and how affordable 3D printing really is. So I'll just go ahead and get started. I wanted to wait a little bit longer to see if anybody else will join, but we have a good amount of people, so I'll just go ahead and get started. So there are some misconceptions about 3D printing. Some people have the idea that 3D printing is really expensive. Um, that used to be the case. Sorry, I have somebody else needs to be admitted, so I'll go ahead and admit them. So, so we have these different misconceptions about 3D printing. The people think it's expensive. Um, some people think they're, the filaments, which is the pretty much the printer ink. They think that's expensive. And I'm here to just pretty much tell you it's actually not. 3D printing used to be very expensive. I mean, extremely expensive to a point where only companies would buy 3D printers, and they would only have one. Really, they were really faulty. But after a couple of years, 3D printers became more streamlined. They're more available to the consumers, and they started off pretty pricey, and eventually, throughout years, the price started dropping down. The 3D printer I started off with is a mini 3D. It was like practically a little toy. I paid $400 at the time for it. Now it's almost worthless. It's just pretty much like TVs. I think that's the best example to bring up, just because there used to be a time where tube TVs only very wealthy people had them. Then it, everybody started having them, and now they're practically obsolete. And it's the same way with 3D printers. There are very, very high quality, good printers out there that you can find roughly for $300 to $400. So and every day I check, I mean, it just gets cheaper and cheaper every time. Some people, another misconception is about the 3D filament. That's the correct way to say the name. Some people call it ink, but it's not really ink. It's a spool of plastic. So anyways, that actually roughly can, like, a whole spool of 1 kilogram filament is roughly around $20 to $25. And if you're printing small items, let's say, and I have plenty of examples I'll be showing you today. If you have let's say if you want to print something like this, it's the famous Baby Yoda. That you can, maybe from a spool of filament, maybe print 40 of these. So but there's different setups that you have to do to make 40 of them. Of course, like this, if this was hollow on the inside, it'll take a lot less filament. If you wanted to make it fully full of plastic, you want it to be really heavy and strong, of course, it'll take a lot more plastic to print that. So so yeah, so it's a mixed bag when it comes to that. You There's different types of settings you can make them, and again, I'll show you all of those. I'll show you all the software and everything. So some people see 3D printers as a glorified toy maker. I've literally had people say that. Yes, it can be. You can make toys. I actually do that. I have a little daughter, so I've been just waiting for an excuse to 3D print things for her. So I make a lot of toys for her, and of course, she loves them. But there's a lot more functional applications out there for 3D printing. You can make common household items. For example, I have, oh, we have someone else trying to get admitted. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, guys. Uh, no back. I do not see their name. Okay, I'll go ahead and, okay, I'll go ahead and admit them. Sorry, guys. So there are other types of things you can 3D print, such as household items. Like for example, I made a towel holder. These are just very just objects. Pretty much, you can print them, hang them on the wall. Picture frames, stuff like that. And then other people use it, such as people that are for example, I repair my own car every now and then, like very simple stuff that broke on it, like a plastic clipping or something. You can 3D print it instead of having it ordered off of a website. So pretty much 3D printing, the way I see it is an in-home manufacturing tool. You can make very useful stuff for them, or you can make useless stuff for them. Some people create Etsy accounts, they start selling these. And of course, with nowadays situation, there's a lot of press behind 3D printing masks, 3D printing face shields. I'm actually one of the people that I've been 3D printing face shields and been donating them to local hospitals and everything. It pretty much 3D printing has shifted a lot of things. So a lot of people are now making things at home. There's a lot of resources out there available. And if you are taking notes, make sure you write this down. There's a website called Thingiverse. That is where I actually found models like this, like the Baby Yoda. So yeah, you can literally just do a search for anything and guaranteed. I mean, you will find somebody that has made the 3D model available. And these 3D models on that website are available for free. Now, there are a lot of things you need to watch out for. So, for example, uh, again, the Baby Yoda. So there's two problems. Let's say if I wanted to 3D print this and sell this, one of the issues is somebody took their time to design this. So they have different types of rights registered to this model. So you have to pretty much ask for their permission if you want to sell this. So 3D print it and sell it, because they have the digital rights. So you do not have the right to sell these unless they say it's okay to do so. Another problem is this is a Baby Yoda. It's a Disney product. So therefore, you have to also have their permission to sell these, because they can and will sue you if you end up making something a product of another company. So be very careful when it comes to stuff like this. Now, there are also 3D modeling tools, such as Tinkercad. That's one of the free 3D modeling tools. And then Fusion 360. Fusion is also free. However, if you want to run a business, you do have to pay for them. So yeah, I mean, there are many tools available out there that are free. And I started off 3D designing and 3D printing maybe 5 years ago, and things have evolved for sure. And you learn how to. It's easy. There are so many tools available out there that it is easy to get started. All you really need is a 3D printer and a computer that works, and you can pretty much get started. So anyway, so back to all the types of stuff you can make. For example, you can the newer 3D printers have become so I guess precise that you can 3D print models within each other. So this was a one-piece 3D printed item. It's practically it's like a little, I guess, gear box or whatever. The purpose of this is to actually calibrate your 3D printer to see if it is set up right. Because 3D printers, there's a lot of calibration with them. If you are thinking and investing in that, just keep in mind that 3D printing is not just like a regular printer. You don't just plug and play it. Now, there are models made, or there are 3D printers made that are more plug and play, but you do have to have certain amounts of knowledge about it. You cannot just get started. I mean, you can, but it takes some knowledge. So, and let's start on that. So this Yoda model that had to be so let's get started on how 3D printing works. So 3D printing works with something called a hot end. Is practically a heating element that takes in the plastic. It's pretty much, there's a motor that pushes the plastic in and it melts it, and pretty much the head moves on an XYZ axis, right? So which makes it 3D. So when it prints it, it melts the plastic layer by layer. So let's say if this is a heat surface or heat bed, a lot of times there are heated beds. Now there are 3D printers that don't have heated beds. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the ones with the heated beds. So when the first layer is put down, that plastic has to stick to the bed, because if it loses, if the object ends up becoming disconnected, you are going to get pretty much a pile of plastic that's molten plastic that's that's cooled off. So and that does happen a lot of times. So that doesn't mean your 3D printer is broken. That means the bed adhesion was not good enough for the object to stick. Okay, so that is the number one thing that a lot of people will experience if you started 3D printing. Your model will not stick, then you're going to get a blob of plastic just everywhere. So yeah, so keep that in mind. So bed adhesion, that's the number one thing. And what is called, what you pretty much have to look for is either a self-leveling 3D printer, which will self-level the bed, which they're good, but I mean, we're still at the beginning stages of that. So if you are looking for a kind of more of a hassle-free, make sure you are looking for a 3D printer that can auto level. That's my recommendation. Now, again, there's millions of different recommendations. That's just what I have learned. Another thing is overhangs. So the ears, so this Yoda model was printed from bottom to top. Now, this is called what's an overhang. So pretty much when the 3D nozzle gets all the way up to here, this plastic on the ear cannot be, the 3D printer is pretty much pouring molten plastic. So this is not going to be poured. The ears would practically be droopy without this thing called a support. The support is pretty much like a thin layer of plastic that is put underneath this. So while the 3D printer is going up, it's also printing the support and going up till it reaches under these ears. And then once it's melting the plastic, it's actually going to melt it on top of what's called a support. That's another thing that you do need to know. And then, of course, there's a lot of different aspects you have to look at with a 3D printer. For example, the layer height. What layer height means is the layers of these, how high they are. So the higher the layer height, which means is the thicker the layers are, the less of a print resolution you'll have. So meaning this was very small layer heights. As you can see, all the details, I mean, there's so much detail showing on this model, right? So the layer height, the less of layer height you have, the more detailed it is. However, the longer it takes for the 3D printed model. So this took 5 hours to 3D print. So and that's going to clear out one of the other misconceptions. 3D printing is not just like this. It takes time. You have to monitor it because there are times, again, let's say this, one of my baby Yodas, when I was 3D printing it, the model detached, so halfway it was printed and the rest of it was just garbage. So you have to monitor it at least, every hour, every 2 hours. And you got to keep in mind that this is a machine that is producing heat, is producing over 200-degree temperature. So you do have to monitor it. Don't just leave it all the time. I mean, and then the longest 3D printed model I have printed took 2 days. So literally 2 days, 48 hours. And I was monitoring it every couple hours. I'll go back to make sure, because you don't want your filament to get wasted, and you don't want uh, your, because some of them do have had the history of catching on fire. Now, that's been eliminated. A lot of them have a lot of safety features on them that eliminates that. I have two 3D printers at home. Again, if you're taking notes, make sure you write this down if you are looking at 3D printer recommendations. I bought a 3D printer called Creality. So just like the word reality, but it's Creality with a C at the beginning. There are different models of Crealities. Some of the popular ones are Ender, Ender. These printers are kits. However, the kits are not, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to put them together. Trust me, seriously, it is not that difficult. Um, uh, now you say, oh, well, you're saying that because you have experience with them. But no, I mean, there are YouTube videos on how to assemble them. Also, for example, there's an Ender 3. That's a very, very popular model. And then there's an Ender 5, another very popular model. The Ender 3 took roughly around 2 to 3 hours to assemble, versus the Ender 5 took only half an hour to assemble. So in half an hour, I mean, I'm talking about you're just putting on the structure, because they can't send a big 3D printer just because of shipping costs. So what they do is they disassemble some parts and then make it more of a compact setup. So yeah, so feel free to check that out. Best resource for me to research on products is I just go on Amazon, type in the name, look at the reviews, read them thoroughly. There's also Facebook support pages that a lot of people type their problems and everything, and you have experts that get on and tell you, oh, you should be doing this. Again, there's don't expect your first 3D printing to be a smooth, like, oh, I popped it in and I plugged it into the wall and I have a 3D model. You're gonna see problems in them. There's different types of layer issues and all of that. So one 3D filament you buy is gonna be a different temperature requirement than another one. So you definitely have to. You'll be reading a lot about them. Again, don't let it intimidate you whatsoever. It is a very fun. It becomes a hobby, and lots of people do businesses out of them too. They reach an agreement with certain model designers, and they start selling them, and then they share the commission. I actually personally have done that myself, where you say, oh, I like this whatever XYZ model. Hey, Mr. Designer, is it okay if I sold this, 3D printed and sold this, and I give you, 20% commission, whatever the agreement is? And they'll say yes or no. And then you just start selling them. I mean, there are YouTube videos that I have read, like kind of like more of not really videos, but articles that I've read, that people are making, $18,000 per year just selling a certain model. It is very popular. Of course, again, nowadays it's become a lot more popular just because of manufacturing shortcomings that are happening just for face masks and all of that. So yeah, it definitely has a lot of applications. I wanted to show you guys some of the 3D things I have printed. Again, I'm going to start with the toys to the more functional 3D prints. I'm going to actually turn off my background because this is the background is really messing up what I have to show. So let me go ahead and change that virtual background to none. Okay. So this is one of the models that I have 3D printed here. What's that? Okay. So it's an articulating lizard. This was all 3D printed in one piece. So this was laid down like this, and then the layers just went layer by layer by layer. And after, I don't know, like 4 or 5 hours, I have uh, a wiggly lizard. So the model was found on the website Thingiverse, as I said. So again, Thingiverse, you can find a lot of cool designs. So we have this, just a vase. This was just a special type of filament. It was pretty shiny. And I just wanted to just kind of print it out and see the design features and details. Again, you can 3D design these stuff yourself too, and some 3D print them in some, or sell the 3D model. So again, there's a lot of opportunities you can seize with that. And then of course a phone holder, very simple design, right? But there are people, again, you can, I'm going to stop about the business aspect of it. You know, that's your choice of what you want to do. But it's a really cool phone holder. I've actually 3D printed this for a bunch of friends and family. They love it. You literally just put the phone on the trunk, and it holds it just like that. So pretty neat. And then there's other stuff. So on the side, what I do is I have a robotic company, and I just pretty much 3D, or I design robots. This is a 4-legged robot. I don't know if you can see it. It's a prototype. So you know, the leg lifts up, it moves, it articulates. So you can program it. It's a Arduino based chip. If you are familiar with chips, it's called an Arduino. It's actually another fun electrical type of component if you want to get into robotics. It's really, really fun. So this is a 4-legged robot that I'm prototyping. I actually have a lot of different prototypes that I have made. This is another one of my designs. It's a robotic hand. Pretty big. I mean, this is my regular hand, so this is a lot bigger than that. It has articulating joints. I don't know if you can see it. Like, you can integrate different types of pins and everything. And whenever one of these servos moves, the finger flexes very nicely. So just like that. So yeah, so this is another one. Another one of my designs is, and these are actually my own designs. So by standards, I can either make these available for free, the resources of the 3D models for free, or I can start selling them, or I can just keep it to myself and just show them in videos. So this is a robotic arm. It has a little control box, same type of chip in it, Arduino. You pretty much connect the servos to the pin, you program it, and you make it work. So this is a fully articulating robotic arm. So you can have it pick up stuff, move around. So yeah, so as you can see, it has a lot of applications. Of course, if you go online, there's people, these are of course doctors, but they're 3D printing ears and organs and everything. So there's a lot of potential to it. They also, feel free to research these too. 3D printing machines that 3D print buildings. So they, again, same concept. Instead of pouring molten plastic, it pours concrete, and it just does it in walls and layers. And if they manufacture actual housings, and it takes, if you had manual labor, it probably would take a couple months, versus with the 3D printer, it would take a couple of weeks, and it'll 3D print a house, like a concrete, very solid house. As far as these 3D prints goes, them being delicate, they're actually pretty solid. This is the weakest type of plastic I use. It's called PLA plastic. It is actually very solid. I mean, I can run over this with my car and nothing would happen to it. They're very solid. I've made very, very solid pieces. But again, you can actually make them a lot harder by using different types of plastic. Like ABS is one of the very strong plastics. So for example, if I put this in my car and it is 90 degree outside, the ears might start drooping. So different temperatures can affect this. But if this was 3D printed in ABS plastic, it would be 10 times stronger than this, and different temperatures does not affect it as much as it will do this. But however, ABS is very difficult to play around with. So if you are a beginner, stick with PLA plastic. PLA plastic is definitely a lot more forgiving. It's a lot easier to play around with. And all of these models I showed you are all done in PLA plastic. So yeah, I mean, it's I'm trying to see if I've made other stuff. Oh yeah, forgot about this one. This is one of my favorite projects. So yeah, I don't know if you can tell, but this is a robot vacuum. So back in the day, I wanted to get a robot vacuum, but didn't want to pay $900 for it. So I was like, oh, well, let me just build my own. So I found this design for free online, and I ended up 3D printing the parts, and then the electrical parts. I ended up, of course, the person had the project available online for free. And so I followed the guidelines. Some of the stuff I had to tinker myself, and I got it actually working. So it has a microcontroller, the same Arduino. If you are into electrical stuff and robotics, you're gonna love Arduino chips. So definitely check those out. But yeah, so this is a fully working robot vacuum. It has two sensors up here. It has one bump sensor. I don't know if you can hear the ticking, but it has a bump sensor and these two sensors. So it's a very basic vacuum. I ended up, let's just tell you this, I ended up getting an actual robot vacuum later for $150. So, and it's 50 times better than this. So again, this is a lot more simpler design, but it's also a very functional. It's really cool just watching it just roam around and start vacuuming. But yeah, so these are all the different types of things you can do with it. Again, it's great. They're great for prototyping. If you have an idea and you always wanted to put it down on paper and make it a reality, now it is possible. When I was a kid, I mean, I've been in love with robotics for years. And when I was a kid, I bought pretty much pieces of wood and started nailing and screwing them to each other and making my robots out of wood and cardboard and this and that. So a lot has changed since then. Now all you need is a computer. You 3D design it. A good resource for 3D designing to get started, which is I actually got started on it as well, is called Tinkercad. So it is a CAD designing software by Autodesk. So it is a very popular company. But what you can do is you just go online. It's a web-based software that you go online and you can start 3D designing, 3D modeling. It is more on the basic side, but it is good to give you an idea. That's what I got started with, and now I graduated to Fusion 360. Absolutely love Fusion 360. If you want recommendation, I would recommend getting started with Tinkercad, but you don't have to. So just type in tinkercad.com and you can just register for free. And sorry, I'm going to go ahead and mute one of our guests. I'm not ready for questions yet, but please make sure you write down your, oh, thank you. Make sure you write down your questions. And once I pretty much open it to you guys, feel free to ask any questions you have. You can either type it in the chat box or just unmute yourself and just speak to me. So anyways, so there's Tinkercad, and then so you first design it. So let's say, again, I'm gonna just use this Baby Yoda. So you design this on, let's say, Tinkercad. It's actually pretty impossible to design this on Tinkercad, but just for example's sake, oh, actually, the elephant phone holder. You design this on Tinkercad, then you download the model. You download it to your computer. It's called a STL file, STL. That STL file then has to go to another software called a slicer. A slicer is pretty much a software that will use this 3D model and translate it to 3D printing language. So I'm saying it slowly so you can follow, because these terms will come about. You will have to use all of these to get a successful 3D print, okay? So you have a 3D modeling software. So Fusion 360, Tinkercad, there's Blender, there's many more. You design it there. Then you need a middleman, pretty much, which is the slicer. That's another software. A good slicer, a great slicer is called Cura, C-U-R-A. And what Cura does is it translates the 3D STL model to 3D printing language, which is called G-code. So it grabs your design, turns it into G-code, and then that G-code is what you use on your 3D printer to print, okay? So you will need a slicer. Again, Cura is highly recommended. They're about roughly 80% of the 3D printing community, they use that. So make sure, and again, that's free. So is Tinkercad is free. And then you, of course, once you have purchased your 3D printer, then you that's what you use. And now I'm actually going to go ahead and show you my 3D printers. So let me disconnect my laptop quick. Okay, and hopefully you guys can see this. So this is my 3D printer right here. This is one of them. It's actually 3D printing a face shield, I guess, brace. So as you can see, the head moving around. I'm actually gonna get quiet so you can hear it and see it, just kind of get a feel of it. This is my bigger 3D printer. This is actually called a Creality CR10. So this is the glass bed. It's a mirror bed. And it will just lay the molten plastic, go up. So you can, it has a very, very large volume. So I mean, my whole arm can fit here. So let's say if you do want to make prosthetics, for example, this would be this 3D printer. The Creality CR10 is the best one for that. Again, there are hundreds of different 3D printers out there. I would recommend just going online and researching it yourself, going on YouTube or Amazon. So yeah, so this is the Creality Ender 5, and this is the Creality CR10. So yeah, and these are the filament spools. So as you can see, it's the plastic spool, $25. This was Amazon one. It's actually Amazon brands. They've gotten into it too. So it is Amazon Basics. I got that for $20. So just to give you an idea, the 3D printers cost me, one of them was $300 and one of them was $400, roughly around that. Oh, you must have lost. Okay, so yeah, so those are the 3D printers I have. Again, they're very affordable, and you don't have to stick with those. There's just type in, go on Amazon, type in 3D printer, and find what will go with your likings. Um, and yeah, so this was brought to you by the Fab Lab, Nova Fab Lab. So we are part of the Nova Systemic, part of the Northern Virginia Community College system, and pretty much the Fab Lab is a giant version of this room. So we have many 3D printers, different types. We have the Mark Forged 3D printer. It is a $8,000 3D printer. I mean, they're fantastic. They can 3D print in carbon fiber. They can 3D print in different types of reinforcing material like Kevlar, and it's actually it's used in the industry as we speak with major companies such as, and this is so I had a person come and train me on the Mark Forge 3D printer, and that person, his company, they were actually designing a shifter part for Mazda's new car that was a concept car. So, and this was like part of, I think it was part of the shifter of the car. So it was an actual articulate. It wasn't like the, panels or something. It's an actual articulating part that would have been very functional. So they were making that they were 3D designing that for the Mazda car that's not out yet. So there are major companies, Boeing, all of them, they are literally hiring 3D designers to design these parts for them, and then they make the prototype, and then they can mass produce it. So for mass production, you pretty much need the 3D file, and then once you can send that to manufacturers and have them actually make it out of metal, make it out of whatever. So it is, again, it is a very functional skill to have. If you're thinking about it, you are at the right place. Again, you can make toys with it, or make very functional parts for yourself, or mass produce them. So they're very useful. They become, I pretty much, I say in the next couple of years everyone will have a 3D printer in their house, just because I wanted again, for my car, one part broke. I really needed another part, but I didn't want to wait till it was shipped from China. That would take a month to get there. I literally, in 7 hours, 3D printed it, 3D designed it, 3D printed it, and had it out in my hands and in my car very, very shortly after. So it will change a lot of aspects out there.